Hi guys, I just want to tell you a little story about a guy who discovered social media about 2 or 3 years ago. And this is basically the story about how I became who I am today. But in the upcoming videos, not only this one, because this one I really want to focus about this car behind me. This car behind me is actually the first car I ever worked on in my entire life. As far as I can remember, the first time I ever worked on that car, I was like 4 years old, and that's the car who really sparked my interest into cars, but not cars in general, but more like performance car. You need to remember, I'm in my 30s right now, so back then, when I was 4 years old, there was no import culture. Like, there was no modified Civic or modified Acura Integra or Volkswagens. But yes, okay, in Germany there was maybe a couple of Golf GTIs running around. But you need to remember, in Canada, back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was all about muscle cars. So that's the reason why I always loved that car. And today I really want to focus about this car. Why does this car is important to me? And this car really forged who I am today. For most of you, maybe it's just an old C3 Corvette. It's not the most attractive Corvette to some people. It's not the most special Corvette ever built. But for me, this car's got a special spot in my heart, and today I really want to bring you back to the day I got that car back from the owner who got it from my grandfather. And I went to this guy's place with a truck and trailer, and I told him, well, I really want to buy that car. And well, you know that if the car is behind me right now, I was able to get it back. So today I really want to show you something really cool. It's the first moment I ever get behind the wheel of that car. And even though we went to that guy's place to get the car back, to get the car and drive it into the trailer, when the guy asked me, well, do you want to take the car out of my garage and drive it into the trailer? I was like, no, I really need to, you should drive the car into the trailer, because the very first place I want to drive that car it's another place. So you're going to see in the upcoming video, the upcoming image, the very first moment I got behind the wheel of that car. It's the first day that car was actually out of a garage. It has been sitting for over 20 years. So that's kind of cool. So without waiting, let's just go to the image, and then I'll be back. What makes this car very unique, it's the car that got me into cars, like I said earlier. I was only, the first time I ever saw that car, I was probably 4 years old, as far as I can remember. And this car was in my grandfather's garage. He bought that car back in the 1970s, the early 1970s, brand new, with actually almost no miles to the clock. And still today, this car is relatively new because it's only got like 34,000 miles. So still, he hadn't got the chance to drive that car a lot because he was working a lot on it. And even before the modification, like the Liberty Walk, the Rocket Bunny, and stuff like that, he was already into car modification. This car actually, when he got it, he decided to, well, today it's kind of a dumb move, but he decided to switch the front end of this car to a 1973 front end with the different bumper. I don't really like that kind of style, but still, he wanted a car that was still actual looking. Because back in the day, these kind of cars were changing every 2 years, so he wanted something up to date. And then he decided to put some flares on it, but not flares like you're used to with the FRS and stuff like that. He decided to fully mold it a flare kit to the cars so the car would have a wider stance. And with the 454, that car was a proper track car. He drove the thing like that for probably about 2, 3 years, and then he decided to go full on white body. So he got a Greenwood white body. You're going to see some image on the screen. But the Greenwood body kit was something that came out of racing. There was actually an actual racing team that was racing C3 Corvette with that body kit. So he wanted to do a replica. That's kind of funny because I'm in the replica business. He wanted to do a replica of the race car that was actually racing in that kind of competition. I think it was the Can-Am series or something like that. So same body kit, same wing, same stance with the big white tires. That was kind of cool. And he never finished the project. He was still working on it, and even back when I saw the car for the very first time, he was still trying to do some changes to the style of the car, and but he never got the car back on the road. And for some reason, in the late '90s, he decided to move on, and he sold the car. So the car was sold, and he didn't want anybody to know where the car was sold because, or to who the car was sold, because this car was his baby, and he didn't want people to realize the car was sold and the car was gone. So he sold the car. I remember as a kid, I was 13 years old, and he was telling me, well, one day that car will be yours. And in my mind, I was like, oh, as soon as I get my license, I'm going to get that car and drive it on the road. But now my dreams were crushed because the car was sold. So I tried numerous times to locate the car, Google on the internet. And you need to remember, back in the early 2000s, the internet wasn't like it is today. So it was kind of hard to do some kind of research to find a car like this. So fast forward to 2017, me and my girlfriend went to buy a Jeep that you now all know by now. You've probably seen that truck in my Instagram sometimes. And but when we got the car from the dealership, the owner of the dealership was like, well, I kind of know you. Your name sounds familiar. Doesn't your grandfather had like a 454 Corvette, a very special Corvette? I was like, yeah, sure. And he just told me, well, I know the guy who bought it from him. And he just lives near here. And I was blown away. And that's the first time I knew that car was still existing today. So after he told me, well, the car's still existing, he got me the address of the guy. And that guy was a very old school kind of guy, so no Facebook, no cell phone, no whatsoever. So I went to his place, knocked on the door, he opened up, he was like, yes, can I help you? And I was like, well, I know for a fact that you got a 454 Corvette in your garage. And he looked at me and he was like, I knew you were coming one day, so come with me and I'll show it to you. So there's a garage in his backyard. We walked towards the garage and he opened up the door and there was like 4 cars. The first car I saw was a 1979 Corvette. It was a red on white car. Not something very special. Then there was a Cadillac and a Triumph. And in the far back of the garage, there was like a goldish Corvette lying under a tarp. And I knew for a fact that was the car. It was the first time in 20 years that I actually saw that car. But the car was not in that kind of condition. It was more like, it was an unfinished restoration because you need to know this car is a fully restored C3 454 Corvette. So it was halfway into the restoration of that car. So there was some missing panels into the car. There was no caps on the wheels or chrome rings or whatever. And there was still the old 1970s Firestone wide oval tires on the car. That was kind of cool, to be honest. And at that time, I didn't felt like I could ask him, well, is the car for sale? So it just stayed like that. I was like, wow, I'm super happy to be able to see that car again. And he was like, well, man, as soon as I get all the cars out of the garage, I'm going to call you, and you'll be able to come by my place and sit in the car and take some pictures. I was like, that's super cool. Please let me know. And a full year passed by. He never called me back, and I was like, okay, fuck it. Maybe he sold the car. I don't know. And back in summer 2018, because I'm working with Craftsman Tools, as you may know also, there was a Craftsman launch product day in Baltimore, and I was invited, so I flew there, took a plane, went to Baltimore to see that big opening of this big launch event of Craftsman. And one of the special guests, there was many special guests at the Baltimore event, and there was like the guys from Gas Monkey Garage, Richard Rollins, and well, I'm not a huge Gas Monkey Garage fan, but there was somebody that I was a huge fan of. Actually, this is probably like the biggest inspiration I ever had into car building after my grandfather, and it is Chip Foose. And Chip Foose was there. And for some reason, I met him like one-on-one. We were sitting at a table drinking coffee, and he asked me, well, what's your car story? Why are you here? Why are you working with Craftsman Tools? And I told him my story, and I told him the first car I ever worked on was a Corvette. And funny thing is that I found the car back in 2017. The first question he asked me was, have you got the car back? Have you bought that car from the guy who found it? And he was like, and I was like, no, I didn't know I could do that. And he was like, yeah, well, just, you should take that car back. And no matter the cost, you should get that car back, because a family car like that, you can only get that opportunity once to get that car back. And we had a conversation for about 20 minutes, and it was amazing. I can remember that moment like it was yesterday. It's almost 1 year since that moment, actually. And he told me, well, as soon as you get back to Montreal, you need to go to that guy's place, even though it's been a year, and you just knock on his door and you tell him, I really want to buy that car. That's what I did. So I went back from Baltimore. I went back to Montreal on Friday, but it was the weekend. So on Sunday, I went to that guy's place, knocked on the door, and there was nobody answering. So I just wrote a message sticking on the door, and I was waiting for a call. He called me the day after, and he told me, well, you should come to my place. I'm going to drive that car back out of the garage so you can see it. And I went to his place. I was with my girlfriend that day, and you're going to see some pictures on the screen, because I think I have rewatched these pictures over 100 times now. But that day, I finally sat back into that car, which is the first ever car I was ever in love with. And I told the guy, well, how much for the Corvette? At first, he told me his price. He was like, this is my price, it's firm, and whenever you're ready, come and get it. And back then, I still had the Eclipse. I had to bring back Jesse Jetta, and I still had that at that time Project Heist, which is the Fast and Furious Civic. I was like, oh my god, I need to find a way to get that Corvette back because he's asking a lot of money. Just go on the internet and Google how much these kinds of cars are selling for. These 454 convertible, fully restored NCRS condition car, you'll see it's a lot of money. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sell the Civic, and then I'm going to raise money through a T-shirt sale or something. And I really thought it was working at first, but it didn't catch up. And I was trying to find new ways to get that car back. So fast forward in March, I had a show in Ottawa. So we had the Jetta and the Eclipse. And that was fun, but I realized that most people were attracted by the Jetta. It was kind of weird, and then there was this show in Moncton, the Radical Speed Sport. So we decided to take the Eclipse just for a small test. So instead of, even though we were with Chad Lindbergh, which is Jesse and the Fast and the Furious, we decided to take the Eclipse instead of the Jetta to the show. And people were asking, where's the Jetta? We don't want to see the Eclipse. After that show, I realized that maybe it's time to part ways with the Eclipse. Stick with the Jetta. So if I have a show with Chad, we're going to take the Jetta and use the money from the Eclipse sale to get the Corvette back. So I reached out to a friend of mine whose dream was to own the Fast and the Furious Eclipse. I told him, well, do you want the Fast and Furious Eclipse that I have in my garage? He was like, oh, sure, man. I really want it. So we agreed on the price. I sold my car to him, and about a week after, I went to that guy's place, and I told him, I got money in hand, I'm ready to take the Corvette back. And that's the story of this Corvette, because now it's just me driving the car. The car is fully restored, fully functional, and it's a blast to drive. And I really hope, guys, if you ever come across a car that you really love, that you had a special connection with, I really hope you're going to find it. If the car is not in your family anymore, I really hope you're going to get it back and enjoy your car as much as I can enjoy this Corvette. So this is the Corvette story. I wanted to do that video for such a long time now, and here it is. I really hope you enjoyed it. It was not action-packed. I know it's a lot of talking, it's a lot of information, but I felt like you need to know what is so special about that car, because apart from the Fast and the Furious cars that I'm sharing on Instagram, you don't know much about me, I think. So this is the Corvette story. I really hope you enjoyed. If you got a car stories, I really want to hear it. So please let me know in the comment, what is your car story, whether it's a car you've been looking for, a dream car, like a kid dream that you bought, or I don't know. So let me know in the comment. If you like that video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I see you soon, guys. Bye.